Hello and welcome back to Bitesize Boxing. So today I would like to talk about this new deal that has been made between Ben Shalom's boxer and Turki Alalshikh as far as a sponsorship deal to supplement and support this new BBC deal that Ben Shalom has recently acquired. So again, a bit of a strange one here because this has kind of come from left field a little bit. Ben Shalom has been the guy out in the cold. Of course, all the major promoters have been working with Riyadh Season and Turki Alalshikh out in Saudi Arabia. And yes, there have been boxer fighters that have gone over and fought on these shows, but regarding sort of having a seat at the table, Ben Shalom hasn't had one. So it's a difficult one because regardless of how you feel about the Saudi involvement and Turki Alalshikh as a whole in terms of what it represents and what it does and whatever, for me, at the end of the day, this is clearly the way boxing is going. So I would much rather there be at least variety regarding promoters and broadcasters than having no variety. I've said in the past, I'm not a massive fan of Ben Shalom's shows in terms of how sterile they feel they can be and the kind of product itself. I don't think he's particularly captivating as a promoter. There has been a lot of eyebrow raises about how on earth has he got a Sky deal on the back of basically just running these, prize fighter-esque shows. And then on the back of that, he doesn't do well at Sky and then secures a massive BBC deal. I think it's only like 4 or 5 shows a year, but even so, a massive show with the BBC, a deal with the BBC, in which the BBC are coming out of retirement for boxing after like 35 years or something crazy for Ben Shalom. The connections this guy has clearly are... I mean, we've heard rumours, haven't we? We've heard rumours, but the guy's clearly connected. And he's clearly able to manoeuvre himself in terms of the business side of things. So from that point of view, fair play, I suppose. But as how this sort of deal might work and how it looks, for me, again, I haven't really got an issue with it. As much as I'm not exactly captivated by Ben Shalom, I also am not one of these people who's going to sit here and lie to you when I say, oh, well, I don't like Ben Shalom, so he shouldn't have a seat at the table and we should freeze him out. Because I've seen certain channels, right, and look, this has been one of the issues with this community as a whole over the last couple of years, is that since certain channels have shown that there is a route to be able to get, sponsorship and to get backing from, broadcasters, promoters and the like by doing this kind of content, it now means that the majority of people that make content like this would much rather just gear it towards basically fanboying towards a certain promoter or a broadcaster in the hope they'll either get a deal, or if they do secure a deal, basically just becoming an advert for that broadcaster, than actually giving you honest and open discourse regarding boxing. And a bit like this, a lot of the reaction I've seen have been stuff like, well, it's not on DAZN, so it won't be any good. I was like, what? Or, oh, well, this can't be a good thing. He shouldn't be allowed. He should be frozen out because all the boxing's now on DAZN, so that's all that matters. I mean, I'm hearing, major channels with that kind of rhetoric, and it's ridiculous. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try and, protect my interests and hope that DAZN come and offer me a bag. I couldn't really give a shit, to be honest. As far as I'm concerned, more boxing or more broadcast is a good thing. Even if I don't think the promoter himself is particularly captivating or necessarily brilliant, the fact that we have diversity of broadcasters is a good thing, because a monopoly in boxing is not a good thing. I don't like the way that everything is sort of moving towards this DAZN model where everything is on DAZN. I was quite happy to see that we had obviously the Canelo show the other week with Crawford over on Netflix. Again, even though I think there are valid criticisms of that broadcast and the team and the way that it kind of transpired on the night, especially with regards to things like spacing of the fights and all this kind of stuff. That being said, I would much rather have, a show on Netflix one week, a show on DAZN the other, and then a show on, say, BBC the next week, than just having everything on one platform. Yes, it sounds good on paper. Okay, I only need to subscribe to one service. It's really good. That way it's easy. It's all contained in one thing. Maybe it makes fights easier to make because they're all on one broadcaster. But there are other issues that come with that, and that is, as I said earlier, you end up with a monopolisation where basically just DAZN can do whatever they want. And we're starting to see that. The way a lot of their customers have complained about the way in which they felt they've been treated you know, wrapping people into really, really long contracts and stuff like that. On top of that, the fact that basically any fight that is above a British title fight, well, actually, even including a couple of British title fights, well, that's it. It's a pay-per-view. It's ridiculous. And of course, they sold themselves as being the pay-per-view killer. That's how they came into the market. They swept up the market. We're getting rid of pay-per-view. Don't worry, all sign with us. Everyone signs with them. And then the Saudis come in and plow money in, and then they put money into DAZN as well. And then so everyone ends up on DAZN. Oh yeah, by the way, that was all a lie. We're not getting rid of pay-per-view at all. In fact, we're going to have 3-4 pay-per-views a month. Sorry. And that's now kind of what you're dealing with DAZN. So for me, moving away from that and being able to actually have sort of that fracturing is a good thing. Again, I'm not expecting this deal to necessarily pull up trees, but at least by having a seat at the table, we might see a bit more cross-promotional play. Turki Alalshikh is essentially going to be the adjudicator here. We all know that people like Hearn, people like Warren are clearly not particularly big fans of Ben Shalom, but with that money man in the middle, you can imagine a world in which these guys suddenly start talking together. So from that perspective, I think it's good. Again, I'm not a fan of the BBC either. I'm not a fan of Ben Shalom, but again, free-to-air, terrestrial, accessible boxing, that is a good thing, I suppose. And yeah, it's something I've had a bit more time to think about, because I spoke about this when the deal was made, and I was kind of 50-50 on it, in as much of that, again, I don't necessarily like the product that Shalom puts out largely, but as I said earlier, free-to-air boxing that anyone can access, you don't even need to pay anything, you can just turn on your TV, anyone in the country can do it and just watch some boxing. That's going to bring more eyes to the sport, and that's a positive thing, I think, overall. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that Ben Shalom has now been invited to join the party, and hopefully, as I say, it means that we get to see a bit more sort of work together. But again, I'm also tentatively interested to see where this BBC deal goes. But you let me know what you think. I'd be interested to know. Take it easy. Cheers.